Some shenanigans. Tweet. Tweet. Yeah.
That's how it goes, right?
Sure. That's usually how it goes. But anyways, just spoke Twitch chat, and I'm good. And we are live on Twitch, by the way. That's just the thing. We are through the transitional period. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Heroes Never Die, your one-stop spot for all things Overwatch. I am your host, Emily Drunk, and tonight is episode 155. We'll be discussing the latest in Overwatch esports, see what's buzzing in this week's hot community topics, preview Overwatch League Stage 2 Week 2, and so much more. Before we can get into the news and introduce you to my co-host, I just want to take a moment to thank everyone who is hanging out with us live tonight on Twitch. And of course, we got to thank all of our repeat listeners out there. So joining me tonight, as always, is my co-host, Ed and R. And Ed, we've had a fairly consistent week in regards to news across both the game and the competitive side of the game. We have Overwatch League Stage 2 officially underway. A lot of shakeups there, whether it's roster changes, meta shifts, all of that good stuff. But how has this past week been treating you, my friend?
It's been fun. It's been really good. April is one of my favorite months of the year, and this April actually exceeds expectations. One, college basketball is over with. Thank God. I'm not a basketball fan. We have the Masters starting this week. Hearthstone released an expansion that came out today, and I'm a big Hearthstone fan, so I'm in love with that right now. We had Overwatch League Stage 2 start. We have Game of Thrones starting this Sunday. We have Avengers Endgame this month. It's a crazy month, but this past week has been a blast. I've been playing a lot more Overwatch, more so than I thought I would be with the Overwatch League back, but I've been playing a lot more and I enjoy it. I've kind of relegated myself to support hero. That's basically what I'm best at, and I should stick to if I ever want to go to ladder. So, but I'm having a lot of fun, Fantasy baseball started, all that good stuff. How's your week been?
It's been pretty busy. Obviously, we had WrestleMania weekend, so there's a lot of stuff going on there, which kind of clashed with Overwatch League. So I was trying to play everything at 1.5 times speed just to try to get caught up on everything. And I've watched the vast majority of the game still, but it was definitely a lot harder this past week. But we got some really crazy things happening in Overwatch League. A lot of experimentation going on, which we'll talk about in the current evolving meta of the game at the pro scene. And we'll even talk a little bit about meta when we talk about bunker compositions, because we have seen that kind of transition not only onto ladder, but also in Overwatch League, for better or worse, depending on how you want to look at it. But my week's been pretty good. I actually have been playing a new game thanks to my hashtag soulmate Slambo, which the way that he got me hooked is by saying that this is a game that basically combines, two subgenres that I love. One, it's kind of like Pokemon, right? But it's set in a Metroidvania style. So this is Monster Sanctuary. So basically what you do is you go around the world and, you're trying to collect eggs to hatch your monsters, essentially. And each monster has kind of their own skill sets. They have skill trees, so there's 3 different paths that you can go. You can actually equip armor to increase your monster sets as well. So I'm having a good time with that. It's currently on Steam with the demo as of right now. So I'm definitely going to be checking that out a little bit more as the week progresses. But, we've been playing more Overwatch, which honestly, I don't think all the podcasters can say, but I know you and I have actually been making an effort to actually been hopping on more. And, obviously kind of the stage break definitely helped with that. But I have started to stream a little bit more frequently now, moving it from, Thursdays, which is normally would have been when Overwatch League is on, to now Mondays before Overwatch League Network. So I'm going to keep trying to stick with that. And, hopefully we can get some comp placements out of the way. And if not, I'm always good to just do some shenanigans over in the arcade and then moan every time we have to go up against triple support and aren't able to kill anything.
Yeah, no, we've definitely been playing. And I think we've talked about doing some more comp or doing some comp and getting Julian and Spider in there. Because that could be for some cheeky shenanigans right there. Chaos. You just would have me and Julian fighting the entire time. And Spider shaking his head silently.
As long as one of you supports us, like...
Oh, no. He's straight up a main tank. So, like, he's main tank. I would be on support. You would probably be on flex tank. And Spider would be on DPS. I'm fine with that. That would be fun.
See, I have an issue trusting other main tanks.
I do too, but
you'll never guess why that is because it's a
Bob.
Certain...
Bob, 100% Bob.
How would you know?
I don't know. It's like you play with Bob, and 1 second he's in front of you, and the next second he's 60 feet in front of you, and you're like, why are there 3 people between me and Bob from the other team?
Right.
I've lived through that. But all we have to do is reel Julian in, and we could play some comp. Mm-hmm. I think we need to make this happen in the next week.
Yeah, we'll definitely try to get that in. But let's go ahead and jump into this week's news. So we actually got some teases for our next event finally after all of this time. Of course, this is going to be the next Archives event. So we've had like a slow roll out of different teases. So the event in question is none other than Storm Rising, and this is going to take place from April 16th and last through May 6th. So we had a decrypted voice message that was tweeted out, and this is addressed to Jack Morrison from an Overwatch agent known as Sojourn. Now, Sojourn proposed a new method to capturing Doomfist by, following his accountant to try to unearth some criminal activity, and this mission is going to be led by Tracer. So I'm assuming that this is someone that she's an early cadet. We don't know where exactly in the timeline this is per se after that, but it's going to feature Winston. We'll have Genji. We'll have Mercy, or, we'll have Gency, if people are going to keep shipping it. Hopefully, the Genjis won't constantly spam, I need healing. I'm sure that's going to be the case, though, just to continue the meme. But according to the voice message that we did get, this takes place after the King's Row mission from one of the prior Archives events. Now, we also had a couple of other things. We had, this newspaper article that was posted on the Overwatch website that dealt a lot with Havana and this upcoming Category 3 hurricane. So we don't know whether or not that's going to be playing any sort of major role into this event. But, we're starting to get, maybe some hints at some of the skins we might be seeing, which we'll talk about here in just a minute. But, when it comes to these events, where would you rate Archives? Because this is one of the more PvE oriented events outside of, say, the Junkenstein.
This is top 3 for me in the form of events. Junkenstein's Revenge is number 1. There's no better event in Overwatch, plain and simple. Lucio Ball can, go to hell, basically. It's that, and then probably this. And then maybe Capture the Flag. I hate Capture the Flag. I hate Capture the Flag games. World of Warcraft did that to me. Warsong Gulch, I think it was. It was the bane of my existence in WoW PvP. So I hate any form of Capture the Flag. But I know it's popular. So I'd say this would probably come just after Junkenstein's Revenge, and then Capture the Flag, then Lucio Ball. It's a great way to easily knock out your 9 arcade boxes, because you're basically, if you go in with a semi-competent team, you're going to easily beat it. And you don't have levers. That's a big thing. In Junkenstein's Revenge, if you have levers, you're kind of screwed. But you tend to have less levers in this one. So, I really like the event. I like that it's in Havana. I do like that, or I do hope that the hurricane thing does play into the map that's coming out, like, because there's the new map for it, and all that fun stuff. And like we talked about it last night on OWL by the numbers, and how cool would it be if like the strong wind played an effect into the game? Like, if you're Farah and you're flying in the air, you have to deal with the wind, or curving your bullets, as we said, and having Angelina Jolie come in and you have to curve them around her. Like, it's just, they could do a lot of things with this just for this specific map, which would be a lot of fun. One thing I'm not, and I cannot remember, is do they have the old maps available still too? Or is it every time it's just the new one? Because this is like the third one they've done, if memory serves me. And I don't know if they have the other ones, the previous ones, available to do in arcade.
I really only remember them doing like the no limit and then the normal one. But then again, like, that really depends on how much of the arcade mode they want to dictate in having like the new event, so to speak. Because the more you add on to it, well, that's just going to take something else out of the rotation, and there's only like 5-6 slots available.
Yeah. There's only 5-6 slots available, but I just didn't know if they have some of the old ones in there. Because I mean, some of them are cool, some cool bosses, but this is a really uncool boss that we have, or that we're going up against, because it's an accountant, and accountants have never done you wrong. Just saying.
Mm-hmm.
In case anybody didn't know, I'm actually an accountant, so I take offense to all of this.
Are you trying to tell me that you are not, in fact, an evil Omnic?
No, but the thing is I'm not against somebody coming up to me and asking me to launder their money. I'm not against this. Mm-hmm. The one thing I will say about this event is, and this is gonna, it generally comes with the worst skins. Like, a lot of the skins are just very bland. Like, if you remember the first one they did with Tracer, Torbjorn, Mercy, Reinhardt, mm-hmm. and I forget who else, they just, all their skins were just, all right, you guys have blue skins. That's it. Nothing special, just blue skins. And then last year it was McCree, Doomfist, Sombra just had Talon skins. So it was like nothing was truly special. I think the best one we've gotten out of all of this is Tuxedo Hanzo. And the rest are just kind of meh. So hopefully they do a little bit better, although from the first skin they've shown, I don't know if it's going to get much better. So I don't know. What do you like? What do you like about this event? Where do you rank this one?
Here's the thing. Like, when it comes to like just running arcade for the events, I probably play this one the third most. Unlike you, I actually do play a ton of Lucio Ball when it's out. So I'd probably put it, Junkenstein and then Lucio Ball in regards to like time played, and then this one would be third. But I'm looking forward to just practicing some of the heroes that are in this rotation. Because, with the last one, I was playing a lot of McCree. With this one, it's probably going to be a lot of Soldier 76. Now that, he's got that extra damage per bullet since that recent balance change. See if I could hone in on my hit scan skills a little bit more again this year with that. But speaking of the skins, now that we have like our first couple of tastes of teases out there, I'm sure we're going to get a look at some of the new skins for this event. And I actually did drop one of the new skins earlier today, which is the Talon Baptiste skin, which is a legendary skin that will be coming out with this event. So basically, like, it's a younger Baptiste when he worked as a Talon operative. And he's kind of like dressed in a red and white outfit that has the Talon logos on the chest and the gun. Of course, he still has like the eye thing. I don't know how to describe it. He has the Vegeta thing. So there's all of that. But we did get like the event like site on the Overwatch website, and they kind of like revealed some of the like we do know that we're gonna get like 9 skins. There's like an achievement page that might hint at maybe some of the skins that we might be seeing, because there are icons of a couple of different heroes out there. So there's one for Baptiste, obviously. There's one for McCree. There's one for Bob, and then there's one that looks like it could be for Bastion. That one's kind of like the question mark one. But the biggest takeaway, Ed, is the fact that Bob, in this case, has a monocle. So as of right now, that is a primary thing that you should be looking forward to, at least for the skins, until we hear more.
Yeah, I mean, now will he actually get his own skin with a monocle? We don't know, obviously. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if you saw my message about this, but it looks like Xbox leaked another one.
Okay.
And it looks like it's a clown. It's a creepy clown. So, while I'm talking, go on the Xbox Twitter account, and you'll actually see they released like a 30-second video, and it shows it's for Overwatch Storm Rising, and they have Junkrat, and they show Junkrat babe to the new skin, and it's a pretty cool skin. Creepy if you don't like clowns. So if you don't like clowns, you will not like this skin. They also, the big one that they have is not just the skin, is going to be the intros, because probably the most popular intro in the game is part of the archives, intros, and it's the selfie one from D.Va. So we also have 3 more intros coming in. We have no new emotes coming in, at least according to the website, but we have 3 new intros coming in. So somehow they have to top themselves. From the leaked achievements, yes, Bob with a monocle, I'm all for that. McCree, I want to know what's up with McCree, because he looks like if Kid Rock wore a bowler hat. That's what I got from it. He looks like Kid Rock with a bowler hat. So I'm like, all right, I have no idea what's going on here. But, it should be interesting. Did you have a chance to look over at the...
Yeah, I posted it in the...
Yeah, it looks like Junkrat. So that's a pretty cool one. That's one I could definitely see myself getting.
That doesn't really do much for me there.
Whatever. You want the plain ones. You want the Mercy skins.
Well, I mean, to be fair, that one's an epic one. The Junkrat one.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that it was an epic one. How can you tell?
The tweet thread.
Oh. I didn't read the tweet.
The one literally right below it.
Well, never mind then. Fine. Way to prove me wrong, Totem. But yeah, the other thing I'm waiting on is, where's the video?
Right.
Kaplan last week said that they recorded a video and it would be coming out this week. So I'm assuming it's coming out tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
They don't generally do stuff on Fridays.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it should drop tomorrow, and hopefully has more than just the event and the event skins. But I'm not going to hold my breath on that.
No. I really hope that the hurricane comes into play. I want some really cool weather visuals. Who knows? Maybe they'll try to irritate people and then have a capture point that moves due to the winds on top of the bullets. I don't know. They can do some really crazy things with weather effects.
I mean, there's one of the achievements is hurricane. So I would assume it has something to do with a hurricane. Going out on a limb.
Right? Imagine if the boop effects make you go flying across the entirety of the map.
Right? You're just What are some of the crazy achievements? So some of the leaked achievements. So there's storm warning, but that just has a list. That just shows like the 4 people in it that are listed. So I'm assuming it's that one will be complete the map with one of each of these characters. Something simple.
Okay.
Maelstrom, Tempest, and Hurricane, because they have kind of the same logo, and Storm Rider. I'm assuming that's the degree of difficulty.
Do you think Winston's cleave damage is going to get a multiplier just due to the fact that it's going to be hit in a bunch of water?
Well, it's all right. So here's the thing, though. If that actually occurs, technically he should be electrocuted.
Yeah, I mean, probably, but you know,
I mean, he is a scientist. But yeah, no, like so the Maelstrom, Tempest, Hurricane, Storm Rider.
Like the problem solved.
Yeah, those 4 are going to be the difficulty level, and then the other one is probably complete the event with these 4 characters at this specific level, and you get sprays or something like that, because these achievements really only give sprays. So it should be fun. I feel Bob in this event would be fairly overpowered. Because anytime you can get an extra character to help you out, seems strong.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. Would be fun. Should be fun. So, I'm excited. Starts, what, next week? I think next week is the start of it, next Tuesday.
April 16th.
Yeah, so, yeah, that's next Tuesday. So, yeah, that should be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure we'll get our matches in rather quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll definitely try to get them in before the show next week. Also, we can have a more in-depth discussion in regards to everything involving the new event. So outside of that, obviously we had Baptiste come out recently. He hit competitive here in the last week. He just hit the Overwatch League this past weekend as well. And it's pretty obvious that there's a certain composition that is starting to creep up in regards to usage, that being none other than the bunker compositions. So this is not like a new composition in the game. This has been around for a while, but Baptiste has kind of like brought some new life to bunker compositions. So by bunker composition, I mean something that's very stationary. It's traditionally, you have Orisa and D.Va for your tank line. At times, like you may have a Roadhog for the off tank. You'll have Mercy as a support. Baptiste has made his way into this comp, and usually pair that with a Bastion being like the staple DPS, and then anything ranging from like Pharah, Junkrat, Soldier, and Widow primarily as like that second type of DPS. Now, this comp originated when Orisa was first added to the game. And that was to help like rival dive playstyles as well as death ball compositions. And the problem was, it was a very niche thing to use because it was primarily just used in defensive situations, only on a couple of maps out in the game. But it wasn't as widespread as some of the other team compositions that we have seen over the years. Now, one of the things that's really helped this is Baptiste's immortality field. So one of the issues in the past with bunker compositions was the fact that you're too susceptible to getting attacked from multiple angles while also being stationary. But Immortality Field gives you that little extra breathing room that you need. And obviously, like, Bastion now can be a little bit more mobile as compared to, what he's been able to do in the past. And if you look at this past week in Overwatch League, we did see quite a bit of bunker compositions being ran with Baptiste. I remember there was a match with Toronto Defiant when they were playing on Hanamura. And Neko had this really great play. They were running a bunker comp, and their opponents were looking to engage. And Neko had like pre-fired his alternate fire like straight up into the air. So when the team engaged, all of those shots were like falling on top of the Bastion and whichever other hero was there at the time. And they were able to like survive the dive. They were able to drop the Immortality Field, live through the entirety of a Hanzo Dragon Strike. The Immortality Field didn't fall down. And it was just one of those like very clutch plays And Immortality Field has been so hit or miss, but when you actually see a play like that, it really makes you appreciate Baptiste's toolkit, and it makes you wonder, like, maybe there is a lot more to these bunker compositions. Now, that being said, Ed, I know, you and I had a few gripes when it came to spectating bunker after, watching 3-3 for so long. So what was it about that specific composition that kind of, like, drew your ire, so to speak?
Well, bunker comp is probably the most boring thing to watch because it's not when you're trying to watch the Overwatch League play the bunker comp, you're either watching A, the Bastion, B, the other team, or C, an overhead. And an overhead is fine, but it's a broad picture, so you're not seeing like the intricacies that you normally would. So you don't see like the actual fighting, and it was a common theme in the Overwatch League this week with viewership is there was a lot of stuff you missed. And it could be because the camera, like the people operating the cameras were not on the ball, but it's also because there's no way, because you had so many flankers, you had so many things going on in different areas, there's no way to predict where everything is going to be. We need an OWL red zone. Like, yeah, have it on like a 30-second delay. Like, honestly, I would love to have the Overwatch League on a 30, 45-second delay, even like a 2-minute delay. And then that way they can adjust the view for the most important plays. Does that make sense? Like, just so you can see everything. That would be amazing. I mean, I don't think it's likely. But the other thing with bunker comp is as much damage output as it can do, fantasy-wise, it sucks. Like, it just sucks the life out of your fantasy team. Because, like, if you're on the attacking team going against a bunker comp, you're just shooting a shield. You're not getting any damage done. You're not getting any kills. You're just shooting a shield. The other team is basically just there to hold you back. Like, they'll get kills every once in a while, but, like, they're just there to hold you back. So it's becoming super effective, especially we're seeing it a lot now because of Hanamura. Hanamura is like the epitome of bunker comp central. And we're seeing lots of it. The best mechanically skilled like bunker comps I've seen performed are actually if you do the Orisa, Baptiste, D.Va, Mercy, Bastion, and Pharah. Because like a good Far Mercy, like the attacking team on Hanamura, for instance, can't focus on the Far Mercy in the air raining down rockets because they have to worry about the Bastion. So the Far Mercy can take an advantage of these people trying to take down the shield, trying to take down the Bastion, because their attention's elsewhere. And this allows Baptiste to heal the group that's there. It allows Mercy to stay with Pharah or do an emergency heal on another teammate or emergency res, and so on and so forth. And that is why it's so effective, is because Mercy can get wherever she needs to be with a Pharah in there and can get the res in, can get behind a shield. She can safely get a lot of reses off. The immortality field is very nice if you can see the dive coming, or if like you see the Hanzo strike coming. Hanzo Dragons is definitely a good counter to a bunker comp. But yeah, it's boring to watch. It really is just boring all around.
Just as a quick note in regards to Immortality Field, it is LOS based, so like if you were to like have like a Symmetra ultimate or like a Maywall or something, you can actually cut off the line of sight so people aren't affected by it. So just a quick PSA for everyone out there if you're looking to try to counter around that ability.
I mean, the majority of the people are not skilled enough to be like, okay, we have to time this just right. I'm going to put the May wall just in front of the immortality field to block off the front half of it so they don't get it. I don't like Overwatch League. It could happen. Gold, it will never happen. Also, coordinated enough to have a bunker comp in gold will never happen.
Well, people know how to put down a shield and sit behind it as a bastion, at least.
Exactly. But you don't have the other healers. So you're SOL on that one. But, I mean, I think the bunker comp is an effect of the maps we're seeing.
Mm-hmm.
And you're seeing it in the same spots on a lot of maps. You're seeing it on sometimes on Kings Row, Point A. It's a perfect place to have a bunker comp. I mean, we had a bunker comp a lot for Kings Row defense on Point A when it was goats. Like, you would see that occasionally. So that makes sense. Hanamura makes sense. I think we saw it on Kings Row for Point A, but I could be mistaken. And then it's just the whole meta is just thrown off by everything. If you can even call it a meta at this point.
It's still evolving, for sure.
I firmly believe right now, if you take Overwatch League and Overwatch game right now, there is no meta.
Yeah, because I was actually looking at like the percentage change rates for the pick rates, and if you just look at like the main components of 3-3, you are probably averaging like 30% reduction of pick across the board.
Yeah, there's definitely like a favored comp, but a favored comp is not the meta. Like, a meta is dive. Dive is a meta. Goats is a meta. That is, you're talking 80-90% of the maps, you're seeing the same comps. This is not that. You are 100% not seeing, 80-90% of the same comp. So there is no meta right now. There's favored comps, and the favored comp right now is probably still different variations of goats.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're seeing more Winston goats, or you're seeing Moira thrown in there, or the Sombra goats, or something like that. So you're seeing variations. You're seeing DPS, triple DPS, 2 support, 1 tank. You're seeing a lot of that. So right now there is no meta in the game, and I really hope it stays like that, because it just makes it more interesting. Because you're just like, okay, what are they going to go now? What are they going to do on this map? It makes every map different than the same old goats versus goats, goats versus goats, goats versus goats, goats versus Chengdu hunters.
Right. And there was one match in particular in the Overwatch League this past week, and this will jump into our hockey meeting topics, where really, like, if you want further proof that there is no set meta, just watch the Chengdu Hunters face Washington Justice this past weekend, because they basically played everything except 3-3, which was fantastic. So this was a match that was held on Sunday, and it actually did set a new Overwatch League record. So the series set the record for heroes played for at least 1 minute. And in total, in a 4-map series, we saw 27 of the game's 30 heroes being played in that series. And the only heroes that did not see a play for over a minute were Ashe, Roadhog, and Reaper. So Hunters ended up taking this series 3-1, which capped off a 2-0 start to their stage number 2. And it's just crazy to see the amount of fluctuation we saw just right out of the gate. There's a lot of teams experimenting, a lot of teams bringing more DPS into the mix, a lot more Wrecking Ball being used just due to the fact that he can use his armor, his adaptive shield in ball mode, which is great. And we saw how ridiculous the Wrecking Ball stall is, even more so now. And, Dynasty definitely showed that when Fisher made that last-minute swap on Kings Row on that last point, where they basically just forced it into overtime and ended up holding on there. But I never thought we'd get into a situation where when you compare, like, this one match alone and the entirety of Season 1, we've already seen more heroes played in just one series compared to the entirety of all of last year.
It was ridiculous. It's one of the top 3 matches to watch in the Overwatch League so far this year. I don't want to say it's the best because there are better, like the Titans versus the Shock for the Stage 1 Finals is probably the best match, period, so far. I mean, that is the best match, period, including Season 1 that I can remember was Stage 1 Finals between the Titans and the Shock. But this match was just, you never knew what was coming out. The only thing you could bank on is that Ameng was coming out on Hammond. Like, that's the only thing you could be like, that's going to happen. And he, Ameng Cyrus, Miley's younger brother, I'm calling it because he came in like a wrecking ball. I'm taking that one. And he performed amazing. He can survive more than anyone in the Overwatch League. Like, nobody can survive better than Ameng on Hammond. And just to see Jinmu shoot Hanzo all into the ground was fun to watch. Bacon Jack, was awesome. Corey was good. Arc was good. I can't really say anyone else. Guido was decent. And no one else on the Justice was. But, it was just fun to watch. Torbjorn was the ultimate MVP of that match. With the turret kills on King's Row, I think 9 turret kills on point A of King's Row to hold it. Like, all right, whatever. This is a quick play match. That's what it was. It was a quick play match in the Overwatch League. It was so much fun to watch. So go back, watch that, please, and just enjoy.
Yeah, that is the pretty much definition of Clown Fiesta. When it comes to, like, no limits, basically. That's kind of like what it felt like, because it was so off-kilter in regards to Overwatch League, and just not the norm from what we're used to seeing. Now, that being said, like, we did get to see a ton of different variations of compositions out there. And, Chengdu definitely haven't been one to play the meta, so to speak, so really was not surprised to see that they would be the team to just go out of their way to basically be like, yeah, we're not playing that at all. Yeah, that's not us. But anyway, something else that did happen over during the Overwatch League broadcast this past weekend was something that's definitely like sparked quite a bit of discussion on social media, because it basically stems from a post on 4chan from a couple of years ago. So this is definitely something that deals with meme culture. This is not the first time that we've talked about something similar like this, because when you go back, Overwatch League basically is like, nope, you guys can't use any Pepe the Frog memes. A lot of their Twitch streamers had to remove the icons or the emotes that they had for it if they were Overwatch League players. And this one actually happened during like one of the post-game interviews with the LA Gladiators when Decay was getting interviewed. You had a fan in the background during the broadcast, and he flashed, the OK hand gesture on the broadcast. And Blizzard told the fan like that gesture was banned due to association as a like white power symbol. So, for the most part, this is something that's been used with meme culture. There's a campaign launched on 4chan back in 2017. Kind of like associating it with white supremacy movements. And, at the end of the day, like, no matter like how blown out of proportion, like the general consensus is of this, just because everyone's taken 4chan for truth. And when you look at something like this is a PR move by Blizzard. They're trying to protect their brand. Overwatch League, there's a lot of money at stake. You don't want to have like these bad PR stories out there that can directly impact securing like rights, get in sponsorships, things like that. And you don't want to have, like something getting spun out of context or like just having this drama and controversy when it's something that you can avoid. So it's really just a case of, you're just trying to not get like misinterpreted information about your company, about like your identity, things like that. And, I know a lot of people are just kind of gonna kind of like roll their eyes and be like, well, no one is actually using it with that sort of like context, but it's all about PR control, and you don't want to have things completely taken out of your hands when, there's a lot of eyes on the product.
Yeah, it totally is. I mean, it just takes one group to take a symbol or a faction like that to the next level to make it horrible. Blizzard is in the damned if they do, damned if they don't type of thing. If they don't stop it now, then they're opening themselves up to, any form of complaints, stuff like that in the future. If they do stop it now, the fans are going to be like, why are you stopping this? Nobody's doing that because of that. Well, can you honestly, as a fan, as a listener right now, can you guarantee me no Overwatch League fan is doing that and meaning that it's racist? You can't, because the likelihood that people are doing it is, likely. And especially now, people are going to do it because, it's the toxicity of it's the cesspool of Reddit in real life. People will think that it's awesome to do this and it's funny to do this and that it's okay for them to do this because they think it will give them Reddit karma. And it won't. So Blizzard just kind of got out ahead of it before it got out of hand. I don't blame them at all for this. It seems stupid. It does. But would you rather have Blizzard step in and do something about it, or Blizzard just sit idly by and not do a thing about it? Like, if they did nothing about it and then they got complaints, they'd get, like you said, it would be a PR nightmare. So, I think Slasher also is blowing this way out of proportion. Like, he's using this to further his Twitter career, if that's a thing. But like he's like still posting pictures about all this stuff, still posting like comments about all this stuff. Drop it, dude. This is a company has to take a stance on this. If it's associated with anything KKK, white nationalist, anything like that, you cannot afford to have any of that remotely associated with your company, especially if you're trying to grow. So, whatever. The people who are upset about this are the Reddit heroes who post everything and think that their opinion actually matters when it doesn't. So, sorry, Reddit heroes. Shut up.
Well, just speaking of controversy, there was something else within the competitive side of the game that has definitely been sparking a lot of discussion. And it's some of the things that have been said on social media have definitely, I'm not going to say like completely changed my, like how I see someone as an individual, but it does make you question, well, why did they go this route rather than just releasing a PR statement? So this all revolves around Team Envy and Fisher drama. Not Fisher from Seoul Dynasty, Fisher from Envy. So that's Fischer.
If it involved Fisher from the Seoul Dynasty,
right.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Right.
I would have been like, oh my God, Fisher from the Seoul Dynasty? I am shocked he's part of controversy.
Right. So Fisher had been on Dallas Fuel's Academy team, and he was released from the team on April 2nd. So there was a report that was released by Halo of Thoughts on April 8th that basically said that Envy's coach and staff told management that Fisher had leaked information that included info on the Boston Uprising and LA Valiant trade. And he basically asserted the coaches leaked the trade, which led to the release of Fisher from the team. So it claimed that, Fisher was set to join NRG, which is the San Francisco Shock Academy team. And that the org when they received info from Envy, that resulted in NRG canceling the deal last minute. Now, of course, this this had a whole lot of back and forth. A lot of it was coming from like people that are on Dallas Fuel or just Envy, the Envy camp. A lot of it was coming from their assistant coach, Jane. And, you know, we did see a couple of edits made to this initial report from Halo. So, you know, just to clarify certain aspects of the report. So, like, he mentioned, like, with the sources, that they confirmed that it was Tailspin, who was on Team Envy, who shared info to the Envy players after receiving it from a member of the LA Valiant's coaching staff. And then, like, when the deal was canceled, this happened, like, right before Fissure was about to board his flight. So basically what happened was Jane, like, saw this report, was absolutely sounding off on social media. There was a huge thread about this. And, you know, Fissure directly commented to some of the things that Jane was saying about Fissure, you know, and, like, his track record, its scrims, all of that good stuff. You had Envy's coach, Chu, basically being like, yeah, well, like, all these accusations are devoid of any sort of fact. It's intentionally, you know, trying to be presented to make him look spiteful without any sort of context or truth behind it. But Ed, you know, we see a lot of shady stuff happening, or just we hear about shady stuff happening in esports, in competitive Overwatch, Path to Pro, whether it's players not getting paid throughout the entirety of the year, you know, LANs getting completely like cut off, basically, in favor of you know, just being held online. But at the end of the day, when you look at how everything is kind of falling into place here, it's really funny to me how the player that got dropped in all of this was the one who came out looking the most mature in the situation. Because you had members of the Envy staff who were making, like, all sort of, like, personal comments rather than just letting Envy handle this and releasing some sort of press release as an organization. And we deal with a lot of, like, very young, impressionable players. And if you're someone that's on, like, the management side of things, you know, you're supposed to be setting good examples for your organization. And I don't think that came through with some of the stuff that was being released here from people that are in those positions.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jane blew it out of proportion because essentially he's the assistant coach and of the Dallas Fuel. And in the report, he actually straight up said the Dallas Fuel and the Envy organization had no idea about this. Like, so Jane had no idea about any of this. Yet he's, like, I get going to bat for people in your organization, but to literally go on rants about people in your organization is a little bit different, because there's no way for you to know. Like, there's no way for Jane to know that, you know, this stuff actually isn't true, because he's not with them on a daily basis. Yeah, you know, we heard that Tailspin told the team about it because he heard somebody from the LA Valiant. I mean, honestly, like, the time frame of it, a lot of people knew about it. Like, a lot of people probably knew about the Valiant and the Boston Uprising trade. So there's no way to actually trace back who it all came from. But like you said, Fissure is the person who is coming out looking like the best person out of all this, because he replied to Jane in a very respectful manner. And he's like, hey, this is what happened. This is what occurred to me. He's like, they did require screenshots after each match. And, you know, he posted them. And he's just like, here's what's going, and here is another screenshot to show that this is something that makes no sense to do. He's like, when only these two people are required to do it, then why is it a big deal? Like, only the two starting DPS have to share screenshots after each scrim. He's like, here are my stats. Here's doing all this. You know, he came out looking great. And I don't know who came up. Like, honestly, if I was to say the person who came out looking the worst out of all this is Jane. because he jumped to conclusions and started the attack on the actual reporter in all this. It's like, you don't attack the reporter because you know he can't out his sources. Because if he does out his sources, then he will never be a reporter again. And you're attacking the person just like doing the reporting and not like questioning whether it's true or not. And Jane did not come off great on this. I think this whole thing is marred with questions on if it's true, if it's not, what aspects of it are true, what aspects of it are not. Because there's obviously some truth to it, obviously something not true to it. So, you know, it will all blow over probably in the next week. I hope Fisher does sign with somebody because he is a good DPS. And, you know, I think he proved himself in contenders. Like, and V did pretty good with him on the team. You know, so it will be interesting to see what happens, but nothing really will, like, nobody's going to get fired. Nobody's going to get suspended. Nothing like that from all of this. So I don't know. It's just another day, another drama in the whole situation.
Yeah, another day of hot takes on social media. And it just seems like, you know, every week, every couple of weeks, there's something we hear about that makes you just kind of like go, really, this is happening? But I will say, like, one of the things that made me kind of like chuckle was, I think one of the like Valiant coaches, I think, tweeted something about like how they're like one house tour away from looking like the good guys in this situation. So there is that. So I mean, there is some comical aspects out of some of the aftermath of some of this stuff, but it's just like there's just a better way to handle things that come out of in-house situations like this. But with that being said, let's go ahead and see what's going on in the Overwatch League this past week. So we've had quite a bit going on. So lately, there have been a lot of retirement announcements, and there was another one here in the last week. This is coming, you know, speaking of Team Envy, this is coming out of the Dallas Fuel Camp, and Effect has officially retired from professional play. So Effect is retiring due to mental health, you know, something that he's really spoken at great length about here in the past. And he basically said, like, he would go on to explain, like, being a star in the game just isn't enough to keep him motivated. Now, of course, you know, it's been a little bit of a roller coaster with Effect. You know, he publicly came out as bisexual over the summer break. He basically discussed, like, the trials that he had faced since making that announcement. And he's going to continue to try to, like, do content, whether it is, you know, YouTube videos, continue streaming, you know, things like that in order to help support himself. And, you know, this seems to be something that keeps happening, like, more frequently here as of late. And we do know, like, some of the players have been talking to therapists. You know, there's a lot of pressure involved in, you know, the Overwatch League, whether it was just due to the schedule, due to the amount of games that were played this last year, and even with, like, a lessened schedule, a lot of this still seems to be building up over time. So, like, do you think there's, like, a course of action that, you know, the league offices can take to help, like, try to combat, like, some of these, like, burnout issues? Because, like, when you kind of, like, look at it right now, it's hard to imagine a space where some of these issues aren't going to be magnified once you start adding in, like, traveling to the mix when we get into the new season.
I mean, they've kind of already started to do some of that, like reducing the amount of games from, I think it was from 10 to 7, which in turn requires probably less practice. You know, they are doing stuff to lessen the stress on the players and the teams. I think it falls more on the teams to make sure that their players are more in a proper mental health. situation. You can get psychiatrists. You can get specific sports psychiatrists who deal with this kind of thing. You get that. You get people who come in, and you get a chef and a trainer to make sure you're keeping your body right, like trying keeping you happy and stuff like that. And we saw it in season 1 with Pine. Pine was, a lot of these players are from Korea. And a lot of them get homesick. So what did they do with Pine in season 1? Pine went home and saw his family and came back a better person. So a lot of it, I think, falls on the teams individually over the league. Because, I mean, the league can only do so much in form of making sure the games are spread out or stuff like that. It will get a little bit harder when we do have road games next year, which is something I'm still shocked that we're not getting more teams next year to make it actually easier. Like, we need a Chicago Overwatch team out of this. I'm surprised they didn't add more teams to make the traveling easier for everyone. And I think that's going to be a big problem next year, is going to be the travel aspect of it. So this year, all they can really do is, the league has already done what the best that they can do. Reduce the amount of games, give people bye weeks, stuff like that. A bye week can do wonders for a team or for players because, take 3, 4, 5 days off practicing and screaming and go out and live a normal life is something that they all probably need every once in a while. So, they're doing it. They could do more, but, it falls on the teams at this point.
Yeah, definitely. And, with Effect retiring now, that does mean the DPS on Dallas Fuel is going to be mostly reliant on AKM and Zachary moving forward. So we'll see how it kind of evolves from there. But Effect really hasn't been playing too much this season so far. So, sad to see him go. He did have some pretty big plays. And, it's just another one of these envious guys who are now no longer with the organization. But I'm curious to see if they just keep him with the Fuel camp in regards to a streamer, kind of like what Rain did with the Fran. So hopefully we'll have more details on that soon. In other Overwatch League news, and this, is directly related to Overwatch contenders as well. You actually have, Gladiators Legion made a move, and I almost said FRD, Fried, freaking commentators. Fried got picked up by Atlanta Reign in the last week, meaning that Gladiators Legion is down a tank, an off tank. And on that roster, they basically have Panker, who's on a 2-way contract. They have XQC, who is basically just there to stream under their umbrella and have a work visa. He's not there to actually play. And that's like the only tanks on this roster. So how are they going about figuring out what they're going to do with that off-tank position? Well, they actually have Bishu signing a 2-way contract with Gladiators Legion. So Bishu is on a 2-way contract to temporarily fill in on that roster. This is someone that hasn't competed in Overwatch League this year, just due to the fact that he was dealing with some health issues in Stage 1. And we don't have any sort of timetable in regards to a return to the main roster for Bishu. So he last played during the preseason, the community countdown. But last official match was against London Spitfire in last year's playoffs. So what's interesting about this one, Ed, is the fact that this is really the only case where we have seen someone that has been in the Overwatch League signing a 2-way contract while they're still actively competing in Overwatch League to help out an academy team. And at least it keeps Gladiators Legion out of a bind. And, potentially maybe Panker and Bishu is one of the tank duos that we're going to see on the main roster at some point whenever that does happen. So you're able to at least build a little bit of synergy with these two players. But long term, like, do you really feel like this is going to be temporary? Just seeing how much kind of like momentum Void has picked up now that he's duoed with his former Kondu Panthera tank in Roar.
I mean, yeah, I don't see this changing anytime soon. They may hire somebody for the next stage or season of Contenders to come in and be their off tank now that Fred is gone. Yes, Fred. So there's FRD, and there's Fred. That's the only two acceptable ways to say his name, not Fred. And, I see it happening for the rest of this stage in Contenders. And, Void is done phenomenal. Like, he's done very well as the off tank. So there's no reason for them to even play Bishu at this point, because there's obviously not a communication issue going on, because they're starting to play so much better. Decay is almost unstoppable at this point. Decay is just amazing. You have a good tank line. You have a really good, support line. And then you have Decay out there. Like, it's working for them. So, yes, this is the first instance where we saw someone essentially get demoted, because it is a demotion. Obviously, they probably didn't reduce his pay or anything like that. They're just like, hey, help us out. We just lost this person to the Overwatch League. We don't want to sign someone brand new. We trust you. Let's do a 2-way contract. But, it's one of those things where you might start seeing more of it.
I do have a quick side note here.
Oh, God.
And I feel like this is super important, too. So you're meaning to tell me that Gladiator's Legion can't find an off-tank, yet Second Wind, who got poached, lost half of their roster, can basically find new players within a day, scrim for 1 hour together before a Contenders match, and win said match that same night. So they can do all of that, but Legion are somehow just not able to come up with a solution outside of pulling from in-house.
Exactly.
Okay.
Like you said, it also has something to do with Pinker. The synergy that, Bishu might have with Pinker and playing with him. And, I know the whole Second Wind thing. Second Wind basically loses their roster every 3 to 4 weeks to other Contenders teams or Overwatch League teams. But, they're just doing what's best. And keeping Bishu fresh. The worst thing to do for Bishu probably at this point is to just have him sit on the bench and not play. Because you get rusty doing that. I mean, look at Elk from Fusion. He got rusty. And it shows. I mean, he's playing more and more now, but he's getting rusty. Or he had gotten rusty, and you could see it. So, get him more play time. Whether it's in Contenders or not, he's still playing. And I think that's all that really matters.
Right on. Well, moving on, we also had an announcement that was dropped basically the day that Stage 2 kicked off out of the Florida Mayhem camp. So after, consecutive rough stages for Florida Mayhem, they're like, you know what? We need to make some changes around here. So Mayhem are currently restructuring, starting all the way from the top. So Florida Mayhem announced the departures of their head coach, Mineral, as well as their assistant coach, Yeah. And the team is looking to move their 3 Western players, that being Tavik, Apply, and McGravy, as well as one of their coaches, Promise, to a new team. Now, Promise actually signed on with the Los Angeles Valiants. That was announced earlier today, which was really no surprise because he was in some of the Valiant's YouTube videos, so really nothing out of the ordinary there. But the move basically means Florida is looking to have a roster and coaching staff that is entirely Korean. Now, rewind all the way back to September when you had the Mayhem CEO Ben Spoon basically you know what? Yeah, we're not going to be fielding a Korean roster. But you know what? That doesn't always end in results, which is funny, Ed, because when you look at the other mixed rosters in the Overwatch League, more times than not, they have done fairly well. For whatever reason, Mayhem were kind of like the odd man out, the ones that couldn't quite figure it out. You know, whether that was communication issues, whether it was them not having enough pieces on the coaching staff, whether they're short staffed, whatever. They just seem to have been marred with issues since the inaugural season, and it just continued to kind of like snowball just out of their control. Now, you had Mineral, who was the team's first head coach. He was really the only coach that they had last season when they entered the Overwatch League. And they did pick up a new head coach in Insight, who had previously worked with Team Stormquake in Contenders Korea 2018 Season 3. There he coached Stormquake into the playoffs. This year he's been working with O2 Blast, which is the O2 sister team. And, there's been a lot of discussion about, what's this going to mean for the three Western players? So when you look at this, where do you think these players are going to end up? Or who do you feel like may be the odd man out or the most likely to find a new home in the coming weeks ahead?
Well, I think Tavik right now is the odd man out. I don't think Tavik finds a team. I think Tavik's career might be over. The only way I think he really truly gets back in is as a backup / assistant coach, almost like a Coco role from the Dallas Fuel before he retired. That's the only way I think he stays in. And the other two is Apply and McGravy. And if you're asking me which one's going to find a home quicker, probably Apply. A lot of people are going to say McGravy because McGravy plays the off-tank, the diva, and is pretty good at it. But Apply plays the Sombra. And the Sombra is proving to be played a lot. A lot of teams have good divas. Not a lot of teams are in need of massive diva help. So I think Apply is most likely to get another job with another team. There are the rumblings that McGravy and Apply are both going to end up with the Valiant, which I would not be upset about. I mean, McGravy would be a backup to Space because McGravy is not going to replace Space. That's plain and simple. But, Apply could really fit in onto that team because, they have a rotating DPS door. And they suck. The entire team. They just suck. So, it's they're the two that will get picked up at some point in this stage. I don't know by who, but they will get. Tavik probably is done, which is sad because he's like the original Overwatch god. He was the one, if you followed the early Overwatch scene, it was okay, he was a free agent. He would just play with random teams, and whatever team he played with would win. He'd be like, I'm going to go play with this team. All right, they won this tournament. Okay, I'm going to go to the next team. All right, they won this tournament. He's so good and so fun to watch. It's past his time. So, yeah, I don't know. Where do you think they're going to end up?
Man, you know what? LA Valiant does make sense to me. I am not the biggest fan of Agilities, especially on Brigida, when he's more Agilites. His stats aren't bad, but he plays so aggressive. And, there's always been this issue, I know, with Fate and Azaria, whoever it is, in that rotating position on that team, where I don't think the aggressive playstyle is to their benefit. So I feel like Apply would fit a lot better in that specific role on the team. I feel bad for McGravy. McGravy basically gets brought on to the Mayhem, right? Outplays Zephyr basically immediately out of the gate. Then Mayhem are just see you. It's feels bad, man. It's a rough go of things. But I'm expecting we're going to hear something within the next week. I do agree. I think Tavik is probably going to go back to streaming full time. I feel like that's going to be a better fit for him. Just because, like, we still haven't seen... Here's the problem. Like, with a lot of these Overwatch OGs, and, you know, this is the same thing that's happening to Taimu, right? Taimu hasn't been playing at all. You know, he dealt with a lot of stress. He has very high peaks, and then... You know, there's very low points, and I feel like you get the same sort of thing with Tavik. And the problem with Tavik, though, is, like, yeah, he plays a lot of these things, but he's not, like, top 5, maybe even top 10 in basically any one of the individual heroes. So he's, like, a great asset to kind of, like, learn from, like, if you want to get a greater scope of game knowledge, but he's not going to be, like, your go-to guy. So I hope he's going to transition more to, you know, content creation and getting back to streams because, you know, I'm still going to continue to support him just because he was really, like, the first player in the competitive scene that, like, I really kind of, like, latched onto and watched, basically, like, anytime he was popping on. And I'm really not someone that watches a ton of streams to begin with, but I would always tune in whenever Tuvik or Pluppy, as he was known prior, would be doing stuff. So, you know, I'm cautiously optimistic about the other Western players, but, you know, with how much movement there's been, it's so hard to say, especially when you factor in something else that happened in the past week where, you know, we have people getting signed who have only played in, you know, competitive Overwatch for 20 days. So, you know, there's that too. Speaking of which, you know, Toronto Defiant, they went out and after, you know, they had one of their players retire, Stellar retired. And they went out and they picked up I'm 37 out of North America Contenders, you know, which was from Second Wind. This was one of multiple players that got poached from them. And this is someone who, entire career, here's the timeline. So I'm 37 basically played one game in Open Division, got signed to Second Wind. He played one game with Second Wind, got signed to the Overwatch League with Toronto Defiant. And as I mentioned, this was all in the span of 20 days. Now, this player is a hit scan specialist. We did see him debut immediately. He's like the tallest Korean in the league. He's fluent in English, much to the chagrin of Danny, who is, you know, the translator. Kind of, that's a pretty comical aspect, which was probably staged, but, you know, it still didn't take away from the moment of just the hilarity of the situation at hand, because we're still not accustomed to hearing a lot of the Korean players having English interviews. So it was a change of pace from the norm, so to speak. But you want to talk about someone who, you know, doesn't have any unnecessary baggage with the name. It's basically like a clean slate. And yes, it is definitely a risk. But this risk has already paid off huge, and it's really hard to scout someone who doesn't really have footage about them all over the internet. So it's a huge asset for Toronto Defiant to have, and if what we saw from his Widow is any indicator of how good I'm 37 is, he is going to play a huge role with the Defiant here in the current sort of meta, or evolving meta that we are seeing, where we're seeing a ton of hit scan getting brought into the fold. And I'm really anxious to see how this kid is going to do against the elite hit scan players in the league.
Yeah, it's going to be super interesting to see what actually he does, because he's the most unknown player we've ever seen outside of like week 1, season 1, you know, that kind of thing. It's like, you know, he played one match in Open, he played one match in Contenders, and you're in the starting lineup in the Overwatch League the next week. Like, it's we're never going to see anything like this. Like, the only thing that could be crazier than this is if some team sent somebody who never played in Contenders or Open Division and signs them to start for them week 1. That nobody's ever heard of. Like, that's the only way it's going to be crazier. I think before this, the most crazy signing we've ever seen was probably the Spitfire with Krillin. And, I mean, he doesn't get any play. So it will be interesting. There's some if you're getting called up that quick without anybody knowing really, but you're getting called up that quick, there's got to be something special about you. Like you have to be a not really a once in a lifetime type of talent, but you have to be one of the best talents they've ever seen for them to do something like that. To take that risk of being like, you played in 2 tournaments in your career. Now you're going to start on the big stage. Like, so it will be interesting to see what actually happens with him. But man, if you were able to get him in fantasy, you are probably pretty happy right now.
Yeah, I do want to note, I feel like most of the exposure he got, where he probably got scouted, was the fact that he did play in one of Jane's Tournaments of Future Champions. I don't know which team he competed on, but he was involved in that, and chances are that's probably where people caught wind of him.
Yeah, I mean that would make sense, but even then, it's like you're playing that tournament sitting at home,
right?
Doing whatever. You're not playing.
Yeah, not in a LAN.
Yeah, or even in like a organized Overwatch tournaments. So it's crazy. I'm interested very much to see him perform coming up.
All right, well, moving on, let's go ahead and jump into our main discussion. So let's take a quick look back at Stage 2 Week 1 before we preview some of the marquee matches. So we got a couple of first looks this last weekend. We had our first look at the Paris map. We had our first look at Baptiste in Overwatch League. We got to see a lot of fluctuation in regards to pick rates. So let's briefly talk about Paris. And I say briefly because I don't want to get too heated and tilted because I am not a fan of this map, and I know you aren't either. So, there's something about assault maps, right? They all have this bad stigma, bad reputation. Everyone always spams 2 CP lol, and it was only a matter of time before we had an even more conflicting assault map in Overwatch getting played at the top level. Of course, that is Paris. So, what's wrong with Paris? Well, 1, this map has one of the most restrictive choke points in the game. And it's one of the longest runs to the first objective. And I guess, from A to B, it feels like an eternity too. And while, yes, the map itself looks good, it's just really not that fun on attack or defense. And the second point, honestly, is just sheer chaos. It's far too open. The high ground options are very limited. And, you and I were kind of like, well, maybe we're going to learn how to actually play the map. And you know what? After the first week, I don't think that's going to be the case. I think we're just going to continue to just be like, this is just awful. I don't know what else to say. It's one of those things. Like, yes, we did get to see a lot of bunker on point B. We saw a lot of teams really struggle to deal with bunker comps on B. Titans especially kept trying to run like 3-3 against it, which wasn't going to work. But it was just very hard to watch, and I don't know if it's going to improve steadily as the stage goes along, but it just confirms my thoughts on the map that I've had since the map initially came out. And, hopefully the teams will learn how to approach it better so we can get that better understanding. But I'm not going to be holding my breath.
No, I'm not going to either. I think there's one change I think they could make to that map that would make it very, very viable. And make it 10 times better. And that is because the most restrictive choke that you're talking about is at point A. The choke point to come in. Well, there's 2 rooms, one to the left that leads to an open area where they have the defense has the high ground and can just mow you down. But on the right, there's a room that has no exit for you to move forward. You move forward you put in a door there on the right so you can maybe possibly flank them or go the flank route. That would open up that choke point, and that's the only change I think they truly need to make with this map. But yeah, this map sucks. Like, it's just not fun. You do see a lot of bunker comps on point B. Point B, I don't mind as much because there's so many different angles you can go about it. You know, you can get it from all sides. So that I have no problem with. It's really point A that I have the issue with. And yeah, it just was not fun. I didn't enjoy watching it at all. You know, I enjoyed every other map they played pretty much, except for the Paris map.
And it turns out Paris is not that great at Paris either. So, you know, there is that. That was the other question mark that we had. Okay, so we also had our first look at Baptiste in Overwatch League. So there's a lot of question of, well, like, is he going to see play right away? And honestly, yes, we actually did see a fair amount of Baptiste. But looking at the other supports, he wasn't the most played, right? You had Lucio leading the pack again. You know, he had like a pick rate of like 76.4%. You had Brigitte in second at 62.8%. Anna had 24.9%. We saw a decent amount of Mercy just due to the rise of TPS comps at 18.7%. And Baptiste had 12.8%, which only bested Moira, who was at 9.1%. Now, what's interesting, Ed, is who was playing Baptiste. So, you know, we had a lot of questions about, okay, well, like, is it going to be a main support, like, switching over? Is, like, a D.Va going to swap out? Because D.Va seems to be more of the flex option in recent, you know, weeks. Is it going to be the flex support? Like, is Zenyatta just going to be gone? Like, what's the case going to be? And looking at the Overwatch League, it was actually Rascal from the San Francisco Shock who played the most Baptiste in Stage 2, week number 1, sitting at 36 minutes of playtime. The only other player in week 1 that played over 20 minutes was Neko, who is the flex support for Toronto Defiant. But, you know, we saw a lot of bunker compositions being ran with Baptiste. You know, I already had mentioned kind of like the play that Neko did with the Pre-Fire, which was fantastic, and, you know, keeping everyone up through the Dragon Strike with the Immortality field. But looking at Baptiste, how would you rate, like, the play that we saw in the last week, knowing how early on in the stage it is with limited, like, playtime and practice on the new hero?
Well, we saw a wide variety. Like, you talked about Neko from the Toronto Defiant. I'm going to talk about Rascal. Rascal was the best Baptiste that we saw. He kind of flipped between Baptiste and Baguette, depending on what the comp they were running. And he was phenomenal. Like, he was doing everything right. And it kind of goes to show you need a DPS, I think, background to play Baptiste correctly, because you need that aim, or you need that projectile, like for the healing grenades, or the, you know, actual shooting like Soldier 76, or, you know, knowing the right target to throw out the immortality field, or right location. Like, you need the flick of a DPS hero to actually really excel. So I really liked having the Brigitte switch over to Baptiste in the form of Rascal. He did it best. Neko did it very well, but there was a clear-cut difference between him and Rascal. And there was a clear-cut difference between Neko and everyone below Neko. So I think a lot of teams just need to figure out who's going to be playing Baptiste, because a lot of teams kind of just floated who was going to be playing it. And you saw a lot of sloppy play from Baptiste. And that's just more about situational things. Like, not many of the teams got practice on Baptiste before she would... before he went live. I said it again. I'm sorry. But before he went live, because between stage 1 and stage 2, you had very limited practice time on him, especially for teams who were in the playoffs. They're not going to waste their scrim time if they're still in the playoffs on playing Baptiste. They're going to worry about scrimming the current patch they're on so they're the best when they're in the championship. So they're essentially, a lot of these teams had like 1 hour or 1 week to practice Baptiste. And, it's going to get better from here on out. So
I like how you were catching second wind of the practice time by saying 1 hour. Bring it back.
Bringing it back.
All right. So, well, anyways.
And then I had to drink to my own drinking game.
You did, which is going to come through perfectly on Be Live. So thanks for that.
Hey, don't worry. It's a wonderful Yeti. Go out and get a Yeti. They make a lot of noise, but they keep stuff cold or hot.
Mm-hmm. Whichever. So outside of that, we also saw a lot of variation with tanks in Overwatch League in Stage 2 Week 1. So, as we mentioned, we have seen a lot of 3-3 variations, and what was very unique this week is how close the Winston and Reinhardt pick rate was. So you had Winston, who actually led the pack for tanks, sitting at 34.9%. Reinhardt was just behind him at 34.7%, so only a 0.2% differential, which is just absolutely massive compared to how it's been in the past. So, for Reinhardt, he basically saw his pick rate cut in half since the last time we saw him in Overwatch League, which is significant. Obviously Winston is doing a little bit more stuff with all the recent balance changes. He's able to punt people back farther with his Primal Rage, all of that good stuff. And of course, Wrecking Ball, with his buff, saw his pick rate skyrocket at 20.5%. And if you look back, I think the last time we saw him, that was like a 14% differential. So a lot more teams are getting on the main bus of always wanting to bring in the ball. So, obviously get to see there. And I love to see more variation now, to the point where it's not always just going to be the same thing. And I'm just quickly looking at Orisa because, we did see an increase of bunker comps as well. And Orisa saw 11.2% for her pick rate, which is a pretty significant jump as opposed to the 2.1% that we saw from her prior. So it just shows, in the current landscape of things, with all the experimentation going on, we've had a taste of a little bit of everything right now. And I'm curious to see whether or not that is going to continue as the stage progresses, or if we're going to start to fixate on just, heavier DPS compositions or strictly 3-3 on a map-to-map basis.
Yeah, looking at the pick rates, I think obviously 3-3 is, like I said before, is the popular pick still, but it's definitely going down because you're starting to see the rise of certain characters like Winston, Sombra, Ana instead of, and you would think Ana instead of Lucio and being the main healer, but no, it's Ana instead of a Zenyatta because the main healer, which would be Lucio, is going over to Mercy. So you're running Mercy Ana, so Ana can heal. So your flex support is playing Ana. I think the epitome of that was the Vancouver Titans with Twilight. Twilight was Ana the entire time he played this week, whereas last stage he was all about Zenyatta. So it's definitely changing. We're seeing more and more variety, and I think that's what we need. You're going to start seeing, more stale picks coming in probably in the next 2 weeks, but that's going to be more based on what maps they're on and not as what is good on every map. Which I think is how I think Overwatch and the Overwatch League actually want it to be. They want it to be more based on hey, this works really good on this map, let's do that. Doesn't work on this map, so we have to run something different. So I think the patch that came out and all the changes did exactly what Overwatch wanted it to do. It broke up the 3-3. It didn't kill it. It broke it up, introduced a more map-based comp system, and introduced more variety. Now they just need to fix, like, the only thing they need to do now is institute a 2-2-2. Like a mandatory 2-2-2. And that would bring in a whole new meta and, you know, stuff like that. But I think that's going to be the next step in the system.
Yeah, we'll see whether or not that's going to happen at some point. And if it does, you know, maybe it's going to be something that's going to hit during the summer. But looking ahead at Stage 2, week number 2, you know, you and I talked about like unlimited drafts in fantasy, and this week's definitely a little bit tougher with some of the matchups, just because some of the stronger fantasy options have, you know, maybe an easier strength of schedule compared to other teams out there. But just looking at the schedule, obviously, you know, we got a pretty big match on Thursday. I mean, it's only the 2 jerseys that we're wearing. We have the Vancouver Titans going up against the Seoul Dynasty. Another fight between my dads, and man, Ed, like, I really hate when things like this happen, right? Like, I have to choose between my teams. It's rough. Now, in hindsight, we got to see this match in the semifinals, and while, yes, it was, in fact, a sweep in favor of the Titans, Dynasty were holding their ground, which cannot be said about all the other teams that, you know, Titans just ended up sweeping early on in the playoffs. But I'm looking forward to seeing in this new evolving meta if the Sombra is going to play an even bigger impact with Michelle, with Dynasty against the Titans, or, you know, maybe we'll get to see more Stitch just kind of flexing the hit scan. Like, there's so many question marks right now with the current landscape. Like, we didn't see Fleta this past week. There was a lot of Fitz playing Zarya on the Dynasty, so I don't know if that's going to continue. We'll see who feeds more between Fisher and Bumper. You know, that's always fun. But that's definitely, for me, that's hands down the biggest match of the week outside of, you know, probably something like there's Defiant Fusion, which should be pretty good, which is also on Thursday. You have Note, who's going to make his debut for the Dallas Fuel this week. So that's going to be one of the big storylines to kind of like watch. But looking at the matches this week, are there really any other ones that stand out, or maybe something that a lot of people might look at on paper that seem like, well, you can't expect much, but might turn into something like Chengdu Washington, like what we got this past week?
Yeah. Yes. First thing I want to say is regarding the Vancouver versus Seoul matchup is, yes, you may think that Michelle might be a big factor in him playing Sombra, but I feel that if Vancouver comes out with the Ana instead of the Zenyatta, I don't see Seoul switching over to the Sombra and running a more traditional comp because, you know, Michelle could be... It's easier to harass a backline Zenyatta than it is to harass a backline Ana, because you can get slept, nano, anti, you know, stuff like that. Like, there's a lot more that can be done to a Sombra in the backline by an Ana than it can be by a Zenyatta. So you may not be able to see that. Some of the more interesting matchups, I think you're looking at the rematch from the Season 1 finals in the Spitfire versus the Fusion. That should be a good one. I think you're going to start seeing Spitfire being more of a, we're just going to run whatever we want to run and what we're best at. And that's what they've been doing, and they look pretty darn dominant. I think a sneaky match that could be really interesting is the Gladiators versus the Charge. I know the Charge have looked horrible. Yeah, it could be a 4-0, but it could be interesting. The Charge, I refuse to believe that they're as bad as they looked in week 1 because they actually looked semi-decent in stage 1, and they weren't a 3-3, let's do this all the time type of team in stage 1. So this should be their meta. They should be up there with the Chengdu Hunters. Just something's not clicking with them. So maybe they get it together and really step it up. Another one that could turn out to be really interesting is the Chengdu Hunters versus the Shanghai Dragons. Because Shanghai is built to be like Chengdu Hunters. They're just not running comps like the Hunters. Like, Shanghai is built to be a 3 DPS, 2 support, 1 tank team. They don't have a good off tank. Gaguri is fine. Nothing special. But they have 3 good DPS. They have 2 decent supports. And they have Gamsu, who plays, the Hammond. They can definitely go toe-to-toe with the Hunters in their own game. Chengdu probably is a little bit better if they did go 3 DPS, 2 support, 1 tank, because they've been playing it longer. They have Amang is better than Gamsu on Hammond, but that could be interesting. That could be a 3-2 game right there. So it will be interesting to see what occurs, but there's going to be a lot of blowouts this week. A lot of blowouts. I'm looking at Sunday. Dallas versus Paris is probably the best matchup that day, because Atlanta versus Justice could be 4-0. New York versus Mayhem, 4-0. LA Gladiators versus the Valiant, 4-0.
Which, by the way, just really quick here, I have to give major props to LA Gladiators on their social media game, who tweeted,
phenomenal,
who tweeted, "Hey LA Valiant, please get it together for Sunday." So good. Love it.
They did more than that. It was a thing of beauty when they responded. I'm just pulling it up right now. Hold on. Yeah, Valiant responded if you think this was really necessary, then go off. And they responded with, "What will come first? A better comeback or your first win of the season?" And then somebody else responded,
right.
"Oh, hold on. The LA Gladiators are facing a 2-game suspension for toxic behavior." And they responded, "We'd still have more wins than the Valiant after it's been fixed. Or the ban's been lifted." I'm like, all right, you guys win. You guys win the award for best trash talk on Twitter for the year at this point. So, yeah, there's going to be a lot of blowouts this entire week, just like there were last week, because there's so many bad matchups. If you're looking at Friday, the Reign versus the Valiant, right? Whatever. Boston versus the Spark, that's probably going to be a 4-0. Shock versus the Charge, 4-0. It's a tough week. Titans versus Outlaws, 7-0. I don't know how they're going to do it, but they're going to get the elusive 4-map win on 1 map and go up 7-0 on the Houston Outlaws. I don't know how they're going to do it. It's right up there with the elusive 5-run home run and the 9-point touchdown.
So, speaking of Houston really quick, with this meta evolving, do you think we're going to see Linkser back into the rotation now that Hitscan are more prominent?
100%. 100%. I think Linkser comes in, Jake's done. I think Linkser and Dante are going to be your DPS because
I'm just saying, I think with Jake, Kane's Row, primarily.
He could be
specialist Kane's Row.
Specialist. He could be a specialist. If they bring him in, they're going to be like, okay, you're going to play Bastion on point A, then you're going to play Junkrat, and that's it.
Right.
Nothing else. But it's going to be Linkser and Dante are going to be your two main. I think the bigger question for me is who's going to be the healers for that team? Mm-hmm. You have Raucus, but is Bonnie or Boink going to be the other healer?
Right.
You just don't know, because I think it was Bonnie was basically the main support season 1.
Yeah, and Boink would accidentally get subbed in for like Ilios.
Yeah, but Boink is, a Lucio specialist. So Boink played a lot in stage 1. So who's going to be the healer? And who's going to be the off tank? Like, is it going to be Spree? Is it going to be Cool Matt? Like, they have a lot of questions about that team. The only things you can say for sure is Muma's going to start at main tank. Dante's going to start as one of the DPS. And Raucus is going to be their crappy flex support. Like, people need to get off the Raucus train. Like, people love him. But statistically, last stage, he wasn't even in the top 20 flex supports out of 20. He wasn't even in the top 20 out of 20 teams. And he was the starting flex support. Like,
feels bad, man.
He was bad. He was bad. And I feel very confident about my bet with Julian Goulian on that one.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that team is in trouble. I'm not seeing a very good stage for them. Sorry, Houston fans. Wait, yeah, I apologize to Houston fans a lot, but you deserve it.
You're Canadian,
right? Sorry.
Okay, mate.
Sorry.
So outside of that, we had a lot of teams in Stage 2 Week 1 get off to a 2-0 start. You had the Shock, NYXL, Hunters, Spitfire, Gladiators, Uprising all starting 2-0. And a lot of these teams, honestly, like right now, it's very hard to see any of these teams kind of like falling out of the discussion, especially when you look at Chengdu's like strength of schedule, because they do have the easiest Stage 2 schedule. But I will say, like, with how Guangzhou started their stage, man, I was disappointed. I really, I put stock in that horse. I thought, like, between, I thought Hunters were going to be good, but I thought Charge would edge them out in the long run. And, early on, not looking too good. But, I'm glad to see Spitfire getting back to the swing of things. This meta, or evolving meta, so to speak, is a lot better for them. You can have Gesture get into play a lot more Winston, and they are looking like a completely different team right now, which I'm happy to see. But man, Shock, after their Stage 1 performance, after losing in that finals, you can tell this team is not wanting to relive that sort of moment. They are playing very angry right now, and I hope to see that continue throughout the entirety of the stage. So another game, too, is we have Washington Justice facing the NYXL this week. So you get Arc facing his former team this week. And I feel like this is important to note primarily just due to the fact that Arc lost his title, right? Arc is no longer Arc the Undying because he's on Washington, who, if you look back at Stage 1, lost the vast majority of team fights, had the most first deaths in all of Overwatch League. So, Arc kind of got the raw end of that deal. So he lost his title. Now it's going to go to, I don't know, like maybe Sinatra when he's on Zarya, because he seems to like not die at times. I don't know. All I know
Sinatra doesn't die. Like, he's the best at not dying, and it's baffling because he is the most aggressive Zarya in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, nope, not gonna die. Not today, good sir. Not today.
It's strange. I don't know how he does it. It happens.
He can't blink in 3 times to die.
That must be what it is. See, at least in that case, like he there's that small window there, like he could recall, right?
But recall bubble, had the similar effect. You don't really attack a bubbling Zarya. You can't attack a recalling Tracer. So it's like it's the same end result,
right?
Just different ways of getting there. I'm 9,000 IQ right now.
So outside of that, obviously, Note making his debut for Dallas Fuel is going to be a very big storyline this week, especially after we saw RCK debut for Boston Uprising this past week. Now, Boston, if you guys have taken a look at our power rankings this week, which, by the way, dropped earlier this afternoon and are on our forums and also on our YouTube, hint, hint, go check it out. Boston has been making some moves, right? Like, they are, spoilers, in our top 5. And this team, this is a team that, like, we always want to be, like, I'm not going to say, like, we're always underestimating them, but we're always cautiously optimistic about this team, because there are moments where they look really good. There's moments where, we're just like, well, how are their DPS duo going to do at this level now, since they did come straight from contenders? And, Blase, Color Hex, really had some strong performances in the last week. They clutched out 2 reverse sweeps this past week, which is a great start. In the long run, obviously, you don't want to rely on that entirely. You don't want to be Philadelphia Fusion in that retrospect, because you want to actually finish with a positive map differential and then hopefully not fizzle out in the semifinals. But in this case, maybe Boston will make it farther in the stage playoffs. But Boston is definitely looking like a stronger team after RCK's debut. That's not to say like it was the most consistent performance from RCK. He started a little slow, but he did a lot of clutch moments that really turned the tides in their respective series. And now it's up to Note to try to, I'm not going to say prove his worth, but to maybe calm the nerves of the fan base. Because there were a lot of people that really looked at that trade between Dallas Fuel and Boston Uprising and just kind of were left scratching their heads. So in Note's case, I really hope that week of preparation, since Dallas Fuel and Houston Outlaws both had a bye week this past week, I really hope Fuel come in with a very good game plan and Note just has a performance of the season for him. Because a lot of people are just kind of like scoffing at the idea of, well, like, here you have a D.Va bot. But we've seen more D.Va players who are primarily known as D.Va players flexing off, and there's a lot of question marks about whether or not Note is going to have those same capabilities, so I'm really hoping we get to see it.
So you may be a little bit higher on the Boston Uprising than I am, because, well, I'm not. There is something to say about a team that has to go to map 5 every time to just even get a win. It means that they're getting matched, they're getting lucky. If you're constantly going into essentially overtime, but you're winning the overtime, that means your team is not performing as well during the actual game. So they are not performing up to what they probably could be. And it's showing because they have to go to map 5 to win. Like, they get into panic mode. They do good in panic mode. They don't do good in regular mode. So if they find a team that can take advantage of that, they're just going to get destroyed. Boston Uprising and the Philadelphia Fusion, since day one, season 1, have been the 2 teams I have not been high on. And I will never get high on them. Like, until they get like new rosters. But like the Boston Uprising is a team where it's, yes, they're the spunky go get 'em team. Everyone loves Fusions and his in your face attitude, and Aim God out there. They got RCK playing Sombra. They got Color Hex popping off on Widow, but they have so many flaws that a good team will take advantage of that. I see them barely getting into the playoffs. Like they're looking at the 7 or 8 seed in that case. I'm very interested to see how Note performs, because Note has to, in a lot of people's eyes, has to match what RCK did, which is unfair because Note is not going to be the Sombra player that RCK is.
Yeah, and their diva stats too are very close. I will comment on, even though Note has a lot more playtime, so some of the stats in regards to RCK might be a little bit inflated just due to the per 10-minute averages.
Yeah, and that the diva stats may be that way, but the diva eye test is not that way. Like if you're looking at like just pure gameplay, Note is a much better diva player um, over the stats. Stats are important, but they're not everything. Sometimes you have to be like, who's better at? There's no stat for who's better at peeling, who's better, at doing this, who's better at doing this on certain characters. And Note is just that person who performs better in the non-statistical categories. So that is super interesting. The one team I want everyone to keep an eye on this week that a lot of people were down on, and we actually skyrocketed them in our rankings this week. Keep an eye on the Gladiators. They had a bad stage one, but they really are a good team. And Decay is so good. I can't stress that enough. Decay is, it's like Carpe Profit Decay for me in DPS right now. Like those are the best DPS players out there. So definitely keep an eye out for that. Keep an eye out for the Dallas Fuel this week too. If they go 2-0, Dallas Fuel could easily be a top 5 team for this stage if they win out this week, because they don't have a super hard schedule this week, but they have they play the Toronto Defiant and they play the Paris Eternal, who are middling teams right now, and they need those 2 wins to kind of set the tone for them for the stage. When you only play 7 matches and you can be 2 middling teams at the beginning, and then you have 2 home games in Dallas later on, you're pretty well set up. So definitely keep an eye out for the Dallas Fuel. Thank God Bob's not here right now, because I could never hear the end of it. Sell high on Atlanta Reign. I think that's a team that's in shambles right now. As much as everyone loved DeFran, once DeFran left, that whole team just went into what do we do? Like we picked up a contenders off tank to play for our good off tank in Daco that was already on the team. We have Kodak in for Dogman. We have Baby Bay in for DeFran, but then we have Enlayer in for Fred and Baby Bay, and that team is just, they don't know left from right, top from bottom. So sell high on the Atlanta Reign. Don't count out the Florida Mayhem either. I've been saying this is yes, it's super crappy what happened to McGravy and super crappy what happened to Apply, but the Florida Mayhem look like a much better team. And they performed a lot better as an all-Korean team. So keep an eye out for them. It's just the little things like that to keep an eye out for, in this week's stage. It should be some fun matches. I don't think I have any bets on the matches this week, do I? Oh, I have bets on my fantasy week with Julian because I play him twice, but not on any actual matches. I went 0-2 last week in my bets. So I lost to Totem. He already got his skin, which I hope he used on a Hanzo Spark player jersey. No? Who are you going to use it on?
I haven't logged in yet. I don't know yet. I'm undecided.
Yeah. And I lost to Julian Goulian, but we doubled the nothing for this week. So
going all in.
Going all in because we play each other twice in fantasy. So if I win 2, don't owe him anything. If He wins 2. I owe him 2 skins. So I think it's a safe bet. I'm either going to owe him. Well, no, I'm a god at fantasy Overwatch League, so I'm pretty much guaranteed to not owe him anything.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll see how that plays out. But anyways, guys, we're going to go ahead and close out the show for tonight. So if you guys want to help us out, one of the best things to do is to go leave us a review over on iTunes or your podcasting app of choice. We're always looking for ways to improve the show to make for a better listening experience. If you guys want to submit any sort of discussion topics, anything like that, we're always open ears. You can just email us or send us a tweet over on Twitter, or you can post in our Discord. And all that good stuff. If you would like to find additional Overwatch content, well, consider checking out Overwatch Recall, where you can find a listing of Overwatch, Overwatch League, Path to Pro, Fantasy Overwatch League podcast on our website at owlnshow.com/OWRecall. And then every Sunday night, I release the episodic listings of all of the content that was produced in the prior week on our Twitter. And, be sure to check out the new episode of Overwatch Recall, which I have slated to drop tomorrow, which just so happens to have this guy.
It's I'm not gonna lie, it's the best episode of OW Recall of all time.
That's because it's the only one that he's been on.
Yeah, no, everyone else sucks. And I rule. Let's just go with that. That's a given.
We'll go with that. So check that out. Go check out our Patreon to help support our network grow. Guys, we have tiers starting at just $1 a month. Not $1 an episode, not anything crazy like that. Just $1 a month can help keep the lights on, help with all of our, Libsyn fees, all of that good stuff. If we release, an additional episode every month, which, can happen, or if we go over, it helps pay for that stuff. And hopefully in the future we can use that money towards giveaways, things like that. But we have a lot of good stuff on our Patreon. Go check it out at patreon.com/OWL network. Now, Ed, I took the reins of this last night on OWL by the numbers, but you are back in the saddle, throwing out all of our social media information and how everyone can contact our show. So take it away.
I mean, not going to lie, you did a pretty crappy job compared to me. So, you had that to deal with. But you can reach us on our email at hndoverwatch@gmail.com. We are on Twitter, so come over and join us on Twitter at hndoverwatch. We do have a website where we release all our videos, including, our live shows, any power rankings, any of the videos Spider does at owlnshow.com. We are on YouTube, where we release a lot of the same stuff. That's youtube.com/Overwatch League Network. We are on Discord, where we tend to talk a lot during the games to just get the conversation going. So discord.me/OWLNshow. So come join us over there. We are streaming presently live on Twitch at twitch.tv/OWLNshow. We are Twitch affiliates, so help support the show by subscribing to our channel and earn our network emoticon. So our podcast does stream pretty regularly. We have Overwatch League Network, which airs Monday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific. OWL by the Numbers airs Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, and that's our fantasy Overwatch League podcast that me, Totem, Julian Goulian, and Blazing Bob do. And then we have this show, Heroes Never Die, which covers everything Overwatch, is Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific. And then host streams, like Spider will sometimes do Fridays at 7:30 p.m. Pacific. Totem will sometimes stream Mondays and Tuesdays before shows, stuff like that. So just keep an eye out on our Twitter, Discord, stuff like that. For when we are doing that, as Totem spoke earlier, come join us on Patreon at patreon.com/OWL network. So we did recently launch that. Come join us at starting just $1 a month. You can join the likes of Blazing Bob, Brendan, and Gabby in helping to our network grow. So thanks again for all the support. You can reach me personally on Twitter at Edanar Overwatch. That's at EDANAR Overwatch. And your question of the week, everyone. Does Drax have nipples in Guardian of the Galaxy?
Oh boy, here we go.
Does he? Because he
So-
does.
Okay, so for clarification purposes, I already solved this mystery of the universe last night
No.
on OWL by the numbers. And if you guys could come to the same conclusion that I did, you get bonus points. But anyways, if you would like to find me solving Edinar's, MCU questions on social media, you can find me on Twitter at TotallyDrunkCTR. Of course, if I'm streaming live on Twitch, it'll be here on our Twitch channel at twitch.tv/OWLN show. But Ed, where can they reach you on social media?
And on Twitter at Edinar, EDANAR Overwatch. And on Twitch at Edinar_OW. I want to start actually streaming some more Hearthstone. I'm really enjoying Hearthstone, so I might start getting into that because when I play Overwatch, I can't ever stream Overwatch like just by myself because I always forget to look over at chat and I get really into the game. And that's a common thing that streamers have is they but in Hearthstone, I can interact.
Right.
And that's where I excel, is interacting with people. Yeah? Yeah, it is. So, yeah, come over there, join me.
Interacting, lashing out, poking fun at, same thing.
Tomato. You say potato, I say potato. Canadians say eh. No?
Right. I mean, they do. And a boot.
Boot. And poutine.
That too. Anyways, guys, that's going to do it for us here tonight on The Heroes Never Die. This has been episode number 155. I've been your host, as per usual, Tumbly Drunk, joined by my co-host, Edinar, and we hope to see you guys back for our next one. Have a good night. Take care. Enjoy the games. And hopefully, next week, we will be having all of our achievements for Storm Horizon.
Have a good one.
And have our Bob monocles. Can't forget that. All that good stuff. Take care.
Take care.